through this. And this is a recording of my buyer presentation, and Willa is with me today. Wave, Willa, say hi. So let's get this rolling, do a screen share. Yay! Go over here to buyer presentation. And I was just saying, don't feel like you got to use this because it's what I use. I like it. Obviously I put it together. I better like it. Although I have cooked things in the kitchen I don't like. So there are presentations that are in the marketing department at which you can find in Fathom Wiki and connect you to there. So anyway, I've got my own little team name. That's what this first page is. And all of this is bound in a GBC binder. It's an inexpensive way of getting material into a presentation mode that looks somewhat professional. And if you don't have a GBC binder, you might want to check Office Max, Office Depot, and the like, and get something. I will have this in there. I will have a copy of the Consumer Guide to Agency Relationships. I'll also have a copy of the exclusive buyer agency that'll be in the back as well. And then at the very back is a sample, and it has sample across it of the purchase contract we're likely to use, depending upon if we're in Kentucky or Ohio, and what it is that applies to that accordingly. So, but that way everything is there when the buyer is finished and you've gone through this presentation and they've signed up with the exclusive buyer agency. They've got a packet of information they will never, ever, ever get from any other agent around. So buyer consultations are biggies. I do highly recommend them. Do I do them all the time? No, sometimes situations don't allow for that, but I do suggest it. All right. And some of this is the same for buyer presentation as it is for a listing presentation. And my big drumbeat is this very first page. Your options come first. I am not here to tell you what to do. I am not here to make your decisions for you. You have the house that you're going to be buying that's going to be your home. I've got very good news. It'll be your home and I won't be moving in. It'll be yours. My job is to educate. My job is to explain. My job is to give options, to share what I have had from my training, my experience, give you, if you do this, here's some positives and negatives, but if you do that, you've got some positives and negatives. And it even applies to this. In going through this, I want you to have a good feel for who I am. And if you decide I'm not the right person for you that you want to work with, I've done my job. The main thing is you're the one in the driver's seat. I'm not. I am here to support you and help you make the best decisions for you and your family. Does that make sense? And they will usually say, uh-huh.
Yes.
All right. Now, a lot of real estate trainers, the coaches for real estate agents, they will tell agents that they need to be spending 70 to 75% of their time prospecting for business they do not yet have. It's a very common drumbeat to hear this. My question is, Mr. or Miss Buyer, if I'm spending 70 to 75% of my time prospecting for business that I don't have, what's not happening here with my clients that I do have? See, I would rather take the bulk of that time and invest it into my clients and help them in the best ways possible that I know how. And through that, as a result, grow my business through my clients. You see here, a lot of real estate agents got that spelled out, spend 70 to 75% of their time trying to find future business. However, for example, right now, the transactions, the 5 sides of transactions that I have under contract right now, all of them are repeat clients. And we're working on a negotiation for another one that is a repeat client. Bulk of my business is repeat and referral. And here's what I'm asking you, Mr. Buyer. Do you know the biggest word in the English language has 2 letters? If I do my job and earn your trust, will you pass my name along proactively to others that have real estate needs? Okay, Willa, what did I just do with that question?
Um, the sounds like that campaign you had me do,
Yep.
the mayor campaign.
Earning trust. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, I've set the expectation for the buyer and what to expect, as well as sort of saying a lot of other agents don't go by this philosophy. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I've set the stage to get referrals going down the road.
Yes.
And so many times agents are afraid to ask for that up front. If we ask for it now at our first meeting, we don't have to come back and feel like we got to break new ground in connection and conversation with clients. So it's important. My suggestion is get it up there in front. Miss Buyer, guess what this is? This is my report card, and on the screen it's sideways. The how I know I'm doing my job is basically this. Joe and Shelly, and these are actual clients. They had a home to sell and they bought a home. They sold it through me. They liked me, trusted me. They bought through me. They referred Lori. She had a house to sell, had a house to buy. Leslie is Lori's sister. They sold a house. Actually, they have sold another house as well, and they also bought a house. Danielle is Lori's daughter. That was connected there. Yance and Lisa are friends of Joe and Shelly, and there was a referral there as well. So in reality, this is my report card. This is how I know I'm doing my job, is when that tree grows. And this is something I'll let you read through it yourself. These are just some folks that I have helped. Obviously, this isn't all of them, but just to give you an idea and some of the things that they shared and what they were at. So this is important, and the reason I have this up front before we get any further with your needs is I want you to be comfortable in knowing what to expect out of me. This is what I am committing myself to. And we're going to make reference to the official form that sets me loose to represent you in just a moment. But these are all things that I am committing myself to. We're going to talk about your big picture a little bit, about the advanced buyer information system. I like to say know before you go, to look at a house as much as possible. We're going to talk about what you're looking for in a house and how that fits into the big picture. It's not just the what, but it's the why. Why is it important to you? Anyway, there's a lot of extra things that are in here that go through the entire prospect. I am not just here to help you find and buy a house. I am there for here on out. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're stuck with me for years to come. You know, I'm here for you to help you with any real estate needs or questions that you have for life. Help you with the home inspections, be the source of help for questions that you have. If we're doing new construction, there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot that needs to be monitored in there. You know, hold your personal information as personal and confidential, and representing your best interest. And then there are other things as well, but right down here you see prepare a virtual tour of your new home to send to families and friends. I'm not sure if all of your friends and family are here in this immediate area. And if you're interested, one of the things I do for my listings, I like to do for my buyers. I do a 360 photo tour of listings as well as a video tour. I will be glad to do that for you once you get moved in if you want to send it to distant friends or family members. And then also, because the market is changing and values are always changing, I'm going to be keeping you up to date with everything that's being sold in your neighborhood. Now, real quick, let me show you. And then at this point, Willa, I will sign this in front of them. I'm committing myself in writing. I'm signing this form right there in front of them and dating it. And I say, let me show you on the form that turns me loose to represent you what they say I need to do. And that's where I pull up in the back of the folder this GBC bound thing that this is already a copy that is back there. And I'll say, here is what the state requires of me. Number one, Use diligence to identify property that's going to fit your needs. That's one. Two, negotiate. That's it. Find property, negotiate. Wow, am I underwhelmed? So that's what the state requires of me. I am going to put myself at a higher level of responsibility to you, and I've already signed this, and this will be yours. Do you see what I just did?
Yes.
Why did I bring out the exclusive buyer agency at this point? And just pointed out this one thing. You know, we're going to come back to this, but I just want to show you this one thing. What I did is I took the fear out of a document before I actually presented. And I'm calling it the form that turns me loose to represent you. That's what the exclusive buyer representation or agreement is, depending upon the MLS and the form that's being used. So I make this form look like it's very minimal, while my commitment to them is very big. So I'm going above and beyond what the state requirements are. Now, the Cincinnati version of this has a couple more details of what the agent is going to do, but it's still like 3 or 4 things in contrast to all of that. So before I start asking the buyers to relay their confidential information, I want them to know that I'm on their side. I want them to be comfortable. And basically, I've opened myself before I've asked them to open themselves. This I like. You can take something, put it together, give it a name, and it sounds really official. The advanced buyer system. All right. In presenting this, I basically touch on several of the points that are there, but I really try to emphasize, I want you to know everything that you can before you step foot inside that door. Sometimes, Ms. Buyer, it's just not going to happen because we've got to hop on a house before another buyer does. But my goal is I've got 2 large reports I'm going to send to you. One's called RPR, and the other one is the realist report. And I'm going to get both of those sent to you. The realist report has a lot of tax background information and other details. RPR is going to have an automated valuation, which is not always on the bean, but it gives a lot of demographic information and other things about that house, neighborhood, and community that it's all put together for you right there. And then I'm going to, if we have the time, pull up comparables for that neighborhood. Get the property disclosure form if it's available, lead-based paint disclosure, or any other information. Now, all of that's going to be emailed to you, preferably before we ever set foot inside the front door. I want you to know before you go. There might be information that's there that you're saying, that house isn't going to work. Well, then I saved you a bunch of time from not walking through a house that isn't going to work. So, and I may beat the drum, and this is free for all of our clients. Willa, you ready for a question?
Yeah.
How much does it cost an agent to run an RPR report on a property?
Free.
How much does it cost for an agent to run a realist report on a property?
It's free.
How much does it cost for a real estate agent to pull the property disclosure or a lead-based paint disclosure?
Free.
Yeah, I got to change the sound effect, don't I? And then a market analysis on that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's free.
The RPR can be pulled up, a report generated, and emailed directly to the client within a minute. The realist report, same thing. The property disclosure, lead-based paint, same thing. The only thing that's going to take a little time is a quick CMA of the neighborhood, and even that doesn't take that long. But how many agents have this buyer worked with in the past that hasn't done any of that? The majority.
A lot.
So, all right. Now we really stop and drill down on what the buyer's big picture is. And I'll look at the buyer and say, Miss Buyer, most people don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, gee, I think I'll buy a house today. Let's see. Let me talk with a mortgage person and give them all of my life history, give them all of my tax returns, give them all of my business connections to verify income, give them this, give them that, and go through this and go through that. And then get in the car and go from one house to the next house to the next house, tie up my schedule, tie up my life. Yeah, no one in their right mind wakes up in the morning and says, oh, gee, this just sounds like it's all going to be fun. Exciting? Yes. Fun? It's work. Work can be fun, but there's a lot that goes into it. So my question for you is, what has brought you to this point today that we're sitting here and talking? What's your big picture? What are you trying to accomplish? Notice I did not ask how many bedrooms. Did not ask how many bathrooms. Did not ask, does it need to have a basement? I didn't ask that. What is it that I asked?
What's their big picture?
Yeah. What are you?
What are they what do they want out of it? Mm-hmm.
All right. My little personal business slogan is I get to help people move to what is next in life through the buying and selling of the place they call home. So if you look at it from that viewpoint, stop going after selling a commodity and go after accomplishing goals. What is it you are trying to accomplish? What is your big picture? And you'll find out their why, and then you can find out the what. And a lot of times we as agents flip them around. We'll go for the what before we go for the why. What's their big picture? What are you wanting to accomplish? And you're going to find out all of the reasons when that comes up. And you will have a pen and your piece of paper in your folder that you will be writing notes down. Number one, you're showing that you're paying attention to them. Number two, when it gets down the road and there's competition with another buyer, instead of going back and saying, well, if you really want this house, it does have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It does have a roof and a place to park the car. You bring them back to their why. What are they wanting to accomplish? So if they start crab walking, just bring them back to the big picture and say, all right, what we're looking to accomplish is you needed to decrease the distance to work and you needed enough place for the kids to play inside and out and whatever else. How well does this house help accomplish that for you? And that will help pull back a lot on buyers' remorse or hesitations. Help them stay focused on the big picture. And if you've got it in your notes, another thing you can do with the notes that you take is dun, 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 in the marketing center. You don't have to use these. You can go get your own, but note cards. And then that evening after I've talked with them, Mr. Bob, thank you for your time. Here's what I heard you say. You really need a place that will accomplish the following things. I look forward to working with you. Your favorite hood, comma, Jim. How many agents have done that in the past for them? All right. Do you have questions up to this point? No. Boy, either I bored you to tears or I'm doing a good job. All right, moving on. All right, and at this point, we're going to equipping. Okay, we've got their big picture. We know their why. And at the end of that why, we're saying, okay, what kind of a house is it going to take to accomplish that? And that's where you start filling in the details about what the search is going to be. You know, the geographic area, the details of the house, things to that extent. Next page is I want them to understand the important dates. Okay. Now, when you buy a house, once we get a house under contract, there are going to be times that are going to be important. Dates that certain things have to occur by. And this, quite frankly, sometimes involves some of those hidden expenses
Mm-hmm.
buying a home. So what this is earnest money. Earnest money, and I'll go through and explain. You know what earnest money is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Earnest is another word for sincere. I call it anti-fickle money.
Mm-hmm.
The buyer and the seller in accepting an offer is taking it away from other buyers because now it's marked pending or under contract. And
Mm-hmm.
this earnest money is the buyer saying they're earnest, they're sincere about that house, and they will do what they can to bring this to closing. Now, that doesn't mean inspections don't occur or problems could occur with the financing or something to that extent. It's just saying the buyer is sincere in making the offer, hence the term. Formal loan application can't occur until you have a purchase contract in place, and that needs to happen within, I like to stick no longer than 3 business days or 3 days. And that would include, setting up for the appraisal and things to that extent. And the next thing that's going to happen are inspections. Do you want to have an inspection, Willow, on the house that you're going to purchase?
Yes.
Oh, good answer. I appreciate that honestly is the way I approach it when I've got a buyer. I'm saying, you do want to have a whole house inspection, don't you? And they say, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, you are so smart. How did you know that? Okay. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a basic price, and yeah, it's adjusted since I put this together. Pest inspection also needs to be in here. Other inspections, and that's where I will bring up about, particularly if it's a basement, the radon inspection. Radon's not uncommon in our region. And I also had a buyer do the radon inspection on a home that's built on a slab, and it ended up coming back high, which surprised the daylights out of me. And then if it's in a homeowner association, the review and approval of documents, final loan approval usually occurs, depending upon the loan, X number of days after contract's been put in place. Now, one of the things, Willa, that we're going to want to do is to make sure that you get the utility companies notified that on such and such date, you're going to be closing on the house.
Okay.
What I want you to do is at least a week prior to closing, contact these utility companies. That way, when you move in, the electricity is on. It's a good thing. You will be likely required to buy homeowners insurance, sometimes called hazard insurance, because it protects against the costs of hazards against the house. You're going to decide whether or not you want to get owner's title insurance. And at this stage, I'll stop and talk about that a little bit. And I've also got a printout and things from the title company that I work a lot with. They're very pro title insurance because it's a moneymaker. So they've got material if you need material to share there. And we'll arrange, Willa, a walkthrough of the house. Usually I like to do it right before closing, like the evening before. We just want to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. And, the toilets are still there. And that's good for a laugh. Anyway, closing date. And then if there are any special items that are involved, like delayed occupancy or something to that extent. I like this page. Willa, here's the big question for you. Is there such a thing as a perfectly smooth real estate transaction?
No.
See my head?
Yeah, no. That would probably make it too easy.
I say there are so many hands, Willa, that is going to touch this transaction, from the lender to the title company to the listing side to the buyer side. And There's just so many hands. Will hiccups happen? Yes. Have you ever been on an airplane before? Well, if you have hit turbulence. Turbulence always happens because hot air rises, cold air drops, and it causes turbulence. So I just put this in you know, pilot hits turbulence. He doesn't come in all over the loudspeaker and say, die. Hiccups happen. He knows how to fly through it and get to the other side. The same idea here. Hiccups will happen. Count on them. So, reason I like this, it's a tooth puller. Sometimes buyers and sellers both are just scared to pieces that problems are going to happen. You just tell them up front, yeah, problems are going to happen. Be ready for it. But we've been through it. We've done it. All right. Well, I know I can tell you were about to ask, Jim, when are you available? I am so glad you asked that question. So in general, I'm available Monday through Fridays, often through a large part of Saturday, but Sundays is the day I like to try to get away from things. If we are negotiating a contract, I'm on it. I don't care if it's Sunday or not. But, and this depends upon the person I'm talking to. I'll say Sundays I like to think of as for church, family, and this time of year, NASCAR. And depending upon the person, whether I use that or not, you can change it up, but it's usually good for a little bit of a chuckle. And then I go back to, here's my report card for you. I really want to earn your trust. And then everything that we do, we've been able to come across a lot of children's ministries that are going on in various places around the world. You know, there was a special needs program going on in China that we got to visit and be part of. In Southwest India, there's a girls' home. The girls aren't orphans, but their parents can't afford them and can't afford the price to send them to school. So they stay at this girls' home that we support. And then this picture is actually of a young girl who was young at that time, whose name is Tasha, and she's from the Ukraine. And we're connected with a ministry that really is focused on children that have been abandoned in the street. So what we earn, part of what we earn, goes to help support these efforts.
Okay.
And then a little bit about myself. This is my permanent girlfriend. And we've been married since 82. And she likes to try to keep me straightened out. And notice I will use the word try. But she also helps behind the scenes. Sometimes you may get messages from her as well, dealing with various things. Okay, Willa, as a home buyer, do you have questions about any of this?
I do not.
Well, I tell you what, let's jump into this form that's going to turn me loose to represent you. And at that point, I'll flip on back and go through what is in the booklet and have my copy that comes out of the folder that I have for them. And I'm writing it out and I'm just filling it out as we go through. You're looking for residential. And I said, here's the two big things the state requires and versus this. I think I'm going to stick with what I got in my book for you instead of just help you find houses and negotiate for them. Boring. All right. Willa, you were about to ask me another question. You were going to ask me, Jim, all these things that you're doing for me, how do you get paid? Willa, again, I appreciate you asking that question because I believe that's probably the most important part of this form. You don't do real estate transactions every day. You have no reason to know this. So here's what it is. Usually in a real estate transaction, in the multiple listing sheet, there is printed in there buyer agent compensation. Vast majority of the time, that is 3%. Now, if it is not 3%, but is like 2.5%, that is fine. If it starts dropping down below that, I'm going to let you know up front because you remember, I want to keep you in the driver's seat. Remember, we talked about that? Because what I'm going to have, and this is me, some agents put 3% in here, just period, regardless. I'll put 2.5 in. I say, if it drops below 2.5%, I will let you know that up front. And if you want to still see the house, that is marvelous. We will do it. If you want to write on the house, again, that is marvelous and we will do it. But what I need to ask up front, because I've got this nasty little habit of liking food with my meals, is anything that falls below that 2.5%, I will ask you to make up that difference. Now, in saying that, there are things that we can often do in negotiating that purchase contract that will help cover that entirely or in large part, whether it's in closing costs or it's in a home warranty. There's a lot of different things that we can put in there. But I think that's important for you to know. There are a lot of agents that if that commission drops too low, they don't tell their clients about it, and that's wrong. They don't keep their clients in the driver's seat, and you need to be. So I will let you know about all of them. Do you have any questions on that?
No, sir.
And then I talk about, again, that nasty habit of liking food with my meals. Evidently someone somewhere thought that a real estate agent only works with one buyer at a time. Well, if you were buying $1 million home, I might be able to do that. But otherwise, do I have other buyers? Yes, I do have other buyers. Fair housing, we're going to talk about that many different times. Someone's created in God's image. I will do everything that I can to help them with a roof over their head. But there's a special form, says Kentucky, what Kentucky's fair housing law means. And we will see this in the purchase contract, which, oh, by the way, I've got a sample in my booklet here for you right back here in the back. Take a look at it just before we have to use it. Become somewhat familiar with it. If you have questions, ask, but it's there so that you get a running start on it. Sex offender registration, it's there. It's part of our society. There's a place that you can go and research that. All right. Caveat, side note, alert, buyer agency representation or agreement will vary. Northern Kentucky, Lexington, both of them have this 10-day written notice out clause. Broker or buyer may cancel this agreement within 10 days written notice and without cause. All right. It doesn't say that if they put an offer on the house that the commission somehow is forfeit. It doesn't say that. If you earn that, you've earned that, and that's agreement between brokerages. It is not an agreement between buyer and agent the majority of times. Can you modify this? Just like you can modify any other contract. You can change that to 30 days if you prefer to do it. Cincinnati's buyer agency form does not have this. It's just Northern Kentucky and Lexington's that does. Have I ever seen anyone use this escape clause? No. But I'm looking at it from the viewpoint of if I do a listing agreement on a house, those listing agreements do not have this escape clause in it. So why is it in here when we list a buyer? That's basically what we're doing. We're listing a buyer. Anyway, but in explaining that to the buyer, if I've changed it to 30 days, just simply say, if I like to give a 30-day window, because sometimes I'll tell clients that if within the first 30 days I don't meet your expectations, you can fire me. And, I'd like to provide that as an escape. And in the Cincinnati one, that's what I put in there. You give them an escape clause, but after 30 days, they're considered, bound by the agreement. But by putting it 30 days here, you can say, this will give us a chance to work together. All right. Indemnifying, buyer recognizes brokers providing or working on information they're getting from them. Mr. Miss Buyer, if you lie to me or tell me something that isn't true, I act on it and something bad happens, you're not allowed to sue me. And I get a chuckle out of that. And then sole contract, and I say, do you have any questions? And then I'll go ahead and sign it and hand it to them. Once in a blue moon, I'll have someone say, I want to take it home and look at it. That's fine. They take it home and look at it and don't sign it and send it back. I never had them in the first place. So let me get the screen share stopped and bring this recording to an end by simply saying I've got this presentation in a publisher file. And if you would like a copy of it, let me know.